Golf lover, join in on fun discussions about golf from the perspective of two plugged-in Minnesota golf geeks, Brad Cole and David Branstad. This is 10,000 Swings.
Hello and welcome back to 10,000 Swings. It is Sunday, May 30th, 2021. I'm Brad Cole.
I'm David Branstad.
10,000 Swings is brought to you by Jarrett Yalen with Northwestern Mutual. For whatever financial questions you have, call Jarrett Yalen with Northwestern Mutual today, 612-209-4523, or visit his website at jarrettyalen.com. He can do retirement planning, life insurance, analyze your golf shop credit spend, show you how to spend a PGA Tour paycheck, you name it. Give Jarrett a call today. We've got a great show for you this week that will include the Charles Schwab Challenge, Colonial Country Club, a little bit more about the PGA Championship because we still have more to break down there with Phil and Brooks on hole 18 and the whole Bryson and Brooks beef that's kind of broken out since that, and then much more. But first, to break it all down, a local legend in the Dallas market, Brad Sater. Brad, how's it going?
Hey, Brad, how are you?
We're good, man. We're, it's about 70 degrees here in Minnesota. It's about to hit 80 to 90 for the next week or so. So people are already, trying to, plan ahead with ice cream and air conditioning and all that stuff. Everyone gets a little nervous when it gets above 80 here, but
it's time to go to the pool.
My air conditioning's out.
Oh, no.
And it's supposed to hit 90 next week.
Uh-oh.
Brad, what was the temp this week in Dallas?
It actually was low. It's been kind of mid-80s, so it's been a little bit cooler than normal. Sometimes it's close to 100 this time of year.
Pretty humid or not too bad?
Yeah, it was humid because it's been raining for about 3 weeks here, so it's much wetter than it usually is too. Even though May is a rainy month, it's wetter than normal this month.
Got it. Is it true that you actually turned down a sponsor's exemption this week to play in the Charles Schwab Challenge?
Yeah, I did. I was nervous about being on your guys' show and posting a big number, so I said, let's just skip it.
I thought maybe you wanted to make sure you were clear to be on the show tonight. You didn't want to mess around, make the cut and then have to do, press conferences and stuff, and you want to make sure you could be on this instead.
No, I was worried about the other side of that.
How many times have you played Colonial?
Quite a bit. Probably, I don't play much anymore, but probably over time, 15 or 20.
And what is the best round you've shot at Colonial?
68. I love that place. It's my favorite. I mean, it kind of fits. It's kind of an accuracy and position course, and that's about all I have left is position. So.
Well, 68's pretty remarkable out there, and I mean, I've obviously never played it, but looking at that thing on TV, like this is your traditional country club golf course. I remember there's an aerial view overhead, and I got to see the tennis courts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. Like, other than 10 days out of the year, this is like a home away from home for other people. And there's tennis courts, there's pools. It is a very old school place, and I love those types of golf courses.
They were talking about it today. Dottie Pepper and Baker Finch. They were all talking about it. Dottie called it the easiest walk on tour for her because the course is very contained, and you leave one green and the next tee box just isn't very far away. So it's very old school. Players love it too.
Especially when you're coming off of Kiowa, right? Where most of the reporters were on the fairway more, but for fans, you're walking in basically quicksand for the entire round, and it's 8,000 yards. A lot of undulation. There's a lot of changes out there. So I totally get, I heard her say that, and I'm like, could not have been more true. It just seemed like a very traditional country club. And, it always seems to hold up pretty well. I was thoroughly impressed with just how tough it played today. For the final round of a PGA Tour event, really there weren't very many scores under par or, more than a couple under. And I think, you said you shot 68. I think Jordan Speith would have loved to have had your 68 today because...
Yeah, I don't know if we played in the same conditions, but but you're right, Brad. I mean, you look at the scores today. I think the lowest score was 5 under. There were a few 3 unders.
Didn't Troy Merritt shoot 65 today? Yeah, local guy?
Actually, Brad, a friend of mine that I grew up with, played high school and college golf against, Troy Merritt. He shot 65 today.
Well, that was for sure low then, had to be.
Yeah, him and both Charlie Hoffman also shot 65. And Charlie Hoffman, I know he's from San Diego, and I know he lives in Vegas, but Charlie Hoffman might be getting some residency in Texas soon. Like, he's had a lot of really good finishes, I want to say, at San Antonio, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to see, you start looking at these weeks and you say, oh, man, it's in Texas. I mean, David pretty much just takes, anytime it's in Texas, he just put me in for Spieth. And
100%. It's not even a question. One of these days I'm going to hit on it.
for sure, because that literally is like a home course for him. I mean, you look at his stats, even beyond what we saw today. I mean, his stats aren't that impressive. He just likes it and figures out a way to get it done. He didn't get it all the way done today, but
it's interesting when you play courses you're comfortable with. You don't have to have your A game to manage your way around that course and put up a good number. But when you play with courses that are hard, you don't know as well, you're not comfortable with, if you don't have your best stuff, oh boy, is that difficult. And I think, yeah, like you said, Spieth is just comfortable there. Like, he hit some very errant shots today.
I mean, yeah, today for sure. But even this week, I mean, I think he hit 5 fairways yesterday and, posted, what did he shoot yesterday? 400?
Right.
So I figured he'd do it again today. That's what we were talking about, before we started the show. I really didn't think, no matter where he hit it, that it would really result in him, not winning. But
no, it is crazy. And I think you said 4 fairways on Saturday. He shot 66 on Saturday with 4 fairways. So, I mean, his scrambling is all time. And even on 18, he hits it in the right rough. He hits it in the water. I'm still banking on him to chip in, just to apply a little pressure to Kokrak, right? Like, it just seemed, they said it today, what is it? He's had 15 holeouts this year on tour. 15. I'd love to know who's second in that stat. Like, it seems, and you texted me earlier, Brad, like, it is just, you just assume that it's just, he's going to chip in from a creek or from a tree, or like, it's just what he does.
Yeah.
We've talked about this on the show before many times, but Spieth has this ability to hit it crooked everywhere. And then he'll make 4 40-foot putts. He'll chip in 3 times. I mean, is this guy's short game that good because he's so erratic? I mean, he gets a lot of practice doing this stuff.
Brad, would you say, in your opinion, at the height of Tiger's career, and because, Tiger missed a lot of fairways as well, obviously hitting it a bit further.
At times.
At times, yeah. He definitely came in and out, but it seemed like he was very impressive with short game. Is Spieth's short game right now, and when, back in 15 when he was playing his best, is his short game better than Tiger's was at his peak?
No, I don't think so, but it's the best on tour now, for sure. I mean, think about this. Think about what would, we're going to talk about, Mr. Hogan here in a little while. But what do you think Jordan would shoot if he played from where Ben Hogan hit it? I mean, it would be unbelievable, because he shoots pretty low from where he hits it now.
Yeah, or where Rory McIlroy hits it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's just so crazy, is that there isn't, I think that's probably the best part of the PGA Tour, right? Is there's just never anyone that's just a robot, right? There's never anyone that does every part of the game perfect. Like Rory's been a top 10 player in the world for 15 years, and everyone's always criticizing everything he does, right? It's
right.
His putting's not good enough. His iron, all these different things he doesn't do well enough, but yet he's still been a top 10 player in the world for over a decade. And when Tiger was playing his best, he still didn't do this well enough. He needed to change his swing. He needed to do this. DJ, criticism for years that DJ's putting wasn't good enough. Now his wedge game's got better, but now he's missing another. There's never I don't know there's ever been a time in my life, and Brad, maybe you can correct us, but has there ever been a time where you felt like someone was truly dialed in 100% in every part of the game for more than a couple months. Like Tiger, even when Tiger played his best, he still had plenty of issues. It wasn't like he was hitting 14 fairways or 14 greens or putting 26, 27 putts around. It never seemed like anyone's ever been able to achieve that. Can you ever think of a time where someone's been so dialed in every single part of their game for a long time? It just doesn't seem to happen, right?
No, not very often. And hope amateurs can take solace in that. It's a hard game for everybody.
So true. Brandy, you think of anyone that was just totally locked in? I mean, there's been times where guys go for a week or so, but it doesn't seem like it lasts very long. I think that just goes to show you how hard this game is, right?
Well, we all know of one player that's trying to become a robot. Bryson. I mean, he's literally trying to create a robot out of himself. It's interesting because even when Tiger had, there's that stretch where I think the stat was he won like 52% of the tournaments he teed it up in for like 2 years. He was missing fairways. He was scrambling. But if you look at it at a little different perspective, the robot aspect of all different aspects of his game might not have been there, but the robot aspect of his ability to win was there. And that is something that's unique. And then we'll get to Hogan here later, because he also had that ability. That's a unique capability.
No, it's a great point. Speaking of Bryson, Brad, was he not in the field this week? For some reason I thought he was playing this week. Did he just not, or did he back out right before? Or
I don't know. I thought he was in the field too, but
yeah, I never saw him on the board. I never saw any WD or anything. So he must have just decided not to play.
Yeah.
Because he lives right in Dallas, right?
He does. Yeah.
So interesting week. And before we get more into it, Brad, I'd love for you to talk us through a little bit about your background. Obviously, I've said that you're a legend in the Dallas market, but if you could kind of walk us through a little bit of your background as a player and in the golf business, just so people can know a little bit more about the experience that you've had with golf.
Well, I've done golf really all my life. I started playing it, as a teenager, maybe a little bit even before a teenager, like many of us did, and just kept playing. I mean, I eventually turned professional and became a club pro after college. My intent was to try to play though, but I pursued that along the way too. Got a Class A PGA. Won some of our more important events in the section that I was in the Midwest section. But my goal was to play, and I played a lot of mini tours to try to achieve that goal here in the States and a little bit overseas, and played 4 tour schools, or went to 4 tour schools unsuccessfully. And that's why I'm joining you every day doing what we do. So, but I did that, a long time ago. I don't play a lot now, but that was a goal of mine, a passion of mine, through my youth and early 20s, and played every day and tried to compete as often as I could, with the goal of hopefully playing, full time, like these guys, that we watched at Colonial today. But, like a lot of us, we got to take other paths in golf that were rewarding, and, some of that playing competitively, maybe helped in other areas, of our careers. So, but I love golf. I still love golf, and I just don't play it as often as I used to, but that's a little bit about me.
Don't you think that being able to play at that level just makes it so much easier to talk with people? When you're still in the golf industry, just being able to talk through things and just having that understanding of what they're talking about. Whereas when I try to talk with people about tennis or football or some of those other sports, I'm not as dialed in on all the different things that people are saying. I mean, it speaks volumes to just your being able to have conversations, right?
Yeah, with a lot of people. I think with a lot of people, they see the passion. You have shared experiences, shared backgrounds, in some capacity, and just lends itself to more conversation and feeling connected, to the business. And it helps. Yeah, for sure.
And how many years have you lived in Dallas now?
28.
Wow. That's so in the Dallas market, what would you say is your top 3 list of courses? Private, public, what's kind of the consensus top 3 tracks in the Dallas market?
Well, there's a lot of great tracks. Colonial is my favorite. I'm going to put Colonial, as number one. Some of the stuff that we talked about earlier. It's just classic. It's old school. Certainly the tour players, even for it being a shorter, more contained layout, I mean, they don't tear it up either. So that says a lot about it. But there's a lot of great courses here. I mean, Byron was just played a couple weeks ago at a new course at Craig Ranch that Maurice and Weiskopf designed. It's great. Preston Trail, where the Byron Nelson was played long ago. That's being redone. That's a great one. Dallas National is highly ranked. So there's a lot of really good courses in Texas and in this area, but Colonial is my favorite of all of them for the reasons we've talked about.
No, for sure. And over the years, what have been the names of the Colonial? So it's the Charles Schwab Challenge now. What have been the names? Do you have track of what they've been over the years, or the transition and what it's been?
Well, for the last 4, for sure, it was the Crowne Plaza for several years. And then for a couple years was Dean and DeLuca took over as the sponsor. And then they left or, weren't a sponsor. And so actually it was called the Fort Worth Invitational right before Charles Schwab picked it up. So the city kind of sponsored it. And then Charles Schwab picked it up. And so I think they have it for a couple more years. So those have been the last 4. And but it's got a rich heritage. I think people still know it. They're thankful for their sponsors and the people that make it all possible. I think a lot of people still think of it as, hey, I'm going to the Colonial.
It's funny how tournaments take on those things, because to me this is still the Colonial. I know it's a Charles Schwab. I know there's a sponsor.
Yeah.
Like, to me, the Waste Management Open is still the Phoenix Open. It's
right.
For us that aren't as young, we don't know these by the sponsors' names. We know these by what the course is. We know these by what the local side of this is. So to me, this has always just been the Colonial.
So, David, are you telling me that you didn't tune into the KitchenAid Senior PGA Championship this weekend?
I glanced at it.
No, KitchenAid. My wife was dying because she's like, wait, first of all, the first thing that she picked out was, wait, wasn't Steve Stricker on the leaderboard last week at the PGA? And now he's again this week. It was cool to see Stricker, actually, I think he finished about the same place both weeks. But just KitchenAid, she goes, how many of these guys, use KitchenAid products? She just thought it was kind of funny. And again, obviously, sponsors are sponsors. It's, hey. It's just kind of funny that, you've got a senior major sponsored by KitchenAid. She just thought it was kind of funny.
I own a KitchenAid fridge.
There you go.
Does that mean I'm getting close to the champion/senior tour?
Well, how about Alex Cheka? I mean, Cheka goes out and wins his 2nd straight senior major. Like, that's pretty impressive. And it just goes to show you how many guys were kind of, they start to phase out in their 40s, right, on the regular tour, and all of a sudden they hit 50 and they just go. Alex Cheka, Steve Stricker, Mike Weir, guys that weren't necessarily crushing it in their 40s. I mean, Mike Weir was essentially gone for 10 years, right, from the game, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And now he's contending in majors again. It's kind of cool to see.
I've met Cheka a few times, and I know people that are close to him. He is such a great dude, and that guy can play some golf. And not only can he play some golf, he's the guy you want to go out and play golf with on the weekend. Like, that's a fun time.
That's awesome. So, we kind of get back into the tournament this week. So, Jason Kokrak, I mean, we can't give this guy enough credit, right? He's literally playing an away game. Like, he is at, would you say, Brad, 10,000 fans?
Yeah.
So
but they're all for Spieth, so it's definitely
9,998 were rooting for Spieth, and then Kokrak's parents were there. Maybe it was absolutely insane how pro Spieth the crowd was, and it's great. I mean, he's Texas's boy. This is awesome. We got to play it up. But I tell you what, it was so awkward on 18 when it became pretty clear that Kokrak was going to win after Spieth hit it in the water. And the crowd was just, I mean, the crowd had been buzzing all weekend. These guys were playing basically a 36-hole match play between the last 2 days, right? They went back and forth and back and forth. It was just the two of them playing their own tournament.
Well, don't think, the air came out of the crowd. Don't think the crowd didn't think, like we were talking earlier, like Spieth's going to hole it from the rough. Something's going to happen. Somehow it's going to work out. So, yeah, they probably thought, well, there's problems now. The ball's in the water.
Right.
No, it's so spot on. So that was to me, it was an incredible performance by Kokrak. And I guess I have two questions. So is Jordan Spieth back? I think we can say he's officially back, right?
Well, he's second in FedEx. He's he's second in top tens. He has like 8. I mean, it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. If you go look at PGA Tour stats, I mean, he's not highly ranked in many of them. But, back to, what David was talking about with Tiger, Jordan finds a way to get it done. And he's had a great year. Again, second in FedEx Cup points. He would have liked to have won today. This one might be a little tougher for him to shake off, even though he's pretty good at it, because I think he probably felt he had this one too if he just kept it fairly under control at his home place.
He started the year 82nd in the world, and coming into this week he was 28th, so he'll probably be 23rd or something like that after this week's performance. And it's just incredible to see what he's done. I'd like to think of Jordan Spieth as kind of the reverse of Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings quarterback, Brad. He leads the league in a lot of incredible stats. He puts up fantastic stats, and yet we
don't win.
And I know you've gone through that a bit with Dak as well, right? Like, Dak puts up a lot of numbers, and that's the hard part is when you start investing $40 to $50 million a year into a quarterback. Well, what about your defense? And you got to kind of hit that sweet spot, right? Where you don't overpay for the quarterback, but you still have money for the defense. But that's my kind of analogy there is like Spieth is the exact opposite. Like Spieth's not going to wow you with a 320-yard drive. He's not going to hit every iron to 5 feet, but he has the grit. Like he has that, and I think that's why I enjoy watching him play. When he's playing well, it's really fun to watch because he's got grit. Now, I will say on the flip side, I really dislike watching him hit a bad shot because he does get so whiny still. And I feel like he's not as whiny as he used to be, but it's hard, all the Michaels and, it just seems, I want to see him do well, but when he does poorly or when things aren't going his way, it seems like it's still a little bit of that whininess to it, and again, it's part of the game. None of us are perfect, but it does get a little bit much at times.
That conversation's priceless though, because he talks like that even if it's going well. He's still talking. It's priceless.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I'm mixed on this. I don't know if he's back yet or not. I think he's on the road to being back, but he had some sloppy swings here this weekend, and he's got to get that figured out. Just my personal opinion, I am not Jordan's coach. He's getting laid off at the top. It gets a little loose there, and he's fanning these. He can hook them. He can throw it out right. And under pressure, that's going to break down. And I just, Jordan put on probably one of the best golf performances from what was it, like 2015 to was it 17, 18? I mean, it was amazing what he was doing. But he still struggled with ball striking. And he struggled with that ball striking even more in the last few years. And it's come to light a little bit. And I think he's got to get this out of his head. Fix the golf swing. I think that's going to be easy for him to do. He's obviously a natural athlete, and he's one of the top athletes in the world at his sport. But if he can sort this out, get out of his own way, I think Spieth is going to roar back, which golf really needs, especially in the absence of Tiger right now. We need our golf all-stars, the Spieths, the Fowlers, the Phils, the Justin Thomases, the Rorys. We need them to shine. Not that I'm against the underdogs like today coming out and winning and giving them their opportunity, but golf needs this. Golf needs the Spieths in the mix every single week. So I'm still kind of mixed. I don't know. I mean, obviously he's won this year. This is another second place, so it's a good start, but I need to see more.
David, I agree with your thoughts because he missed it both ways today, and Faldo was talking a little bit about that too. So you've got to sort that out. I mean, you can't miss it both ways. You've got to tighten that up. He's certainly capable and will do that, but until you do, you're not going to feel that you're back, and you're not going to feel confident as you could be on the course, across all the courses they play during the year.
To me, it's impossible to play elite level golf with a two-way miss and be confident over that tee box. And I think you could even see it today with some of his reactions after he hit the ball. It was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just did that. But again, if he figures this out, which I think he can, watch out.
So my next question is Jason Kokrak good? He's 36 years old. He's won. This is his second win now in the 2021 season. I think he was like 5th or 6th in FedEx Cup standings. So obviously, he's done some good things. He's been, he hasn't done a ton in majors, but he's a guy that's out there. And again, 2 wins in a season is nothing to not speak about. Or is he more of a horse for the course kind of guy? He took 3rd place last year at the Charles Schwab. So is this just going to be, hey, it's the Colonial hosted by Jason Kokrak going forward? He's always going to be a perennial top 10, or is he actually good? What do you think, Brad?
Well, he's certainly good this year, and to be honest, I mean, this is the first time I've watched him play. Here at Colonial, watching his game, even though he played very well, I don't know that I would say Colonial is his place. Because he has length, he has power, he obviously, put together, accuracy and game management this week. But I don't know that even if I'd have known that stat that you just gave about last year, I don't know that would have resonated with me, because I think he's got game now that I've seen it for many other courses, and maybe he's just somebody that's developed late. And beginning to put some of this together, because really he's got a lot of skills, and he's got a lot of power that you don't even use at Colonial.
Oh, good point. And that's what's interesting. Like, he's done very well at this course, but this course doesn't necessarily match up with his length. So I just think, does that make golf so cool? Like, what other sport can you start to peak at age 36? Like, isn't that sweet? Like, how many guys, grinded it out in the G League and in Europe and all these different things, and all of a sudden they're an all-star in the NBA as a 36-year-old for the first time in their whole career. Because that's essentially what Jason Kokrak's doing right now. Yeah. He played at Xavier, he played nationwide in the eGolf Professional Tour and had a couple wins out there, and now he's won twice on the PGA Tour. But this guy has literally been kind of not necessarily a no-namer, but kind of. And now all of a sudden he's a top 40 player in the world, 2 wins in 6 months, and he's going toe to toe with one of the better players of a generation at that guy's home track, if you will, and in front of all the fans takes him down in a 36-hole match. So I'm just impressed, and I always love these stories. Even like when Jimmy Walker and some of these guys started doing more kind of later in their careers, it's just fun to see. Not everyone has to come out and win when they're 20. And be kind of fun if Kokrak becomes a guy that all of a sudden, is part of the future of the rankings, or, hangs around for a bit. But who knows? It could just be that he's a horse for the course at Colonial.
Let's think of it more like this. He's 36 years old. He's won twice now. He's only had 16 starts on tour, right? He's 36. Look at the grind that guy has gone through to get to where he is right now. I mean, that is not easy to do. It does not take an ordinary person to be able to go through what he did to get to where he is. So I think, is he good? Well, anyone who plays on the PGA Tour is good. Anyone who wins twice in one season and he joins only two others, Stewart, Sink, and Bryson, that have done that this year, yeah, he's good. Does he have the game to be great? I don't know. We'll find out. At age 36, it's kind of tough to tell. But to have the mental capacity to stick with what his goals are, that's pretty impressive to me. Like, he obviously has goals to be the best, and good for him. I mean, I know everyone was rooting for Jordan today, and truthfully, I probably was too. But good for him. This is a lifelong dream of him to become successful in the PGA Tour, and now he's proven it twice.
Yeah, it's pretty special. And again, it'd just be fun to see, what does this do for him? Because, every win does something different. And to go toe-to-toe with a player like that. And the other part, too, we haven't talked about yet, is the strength of the field this week. This is a really good field. I mean, Phil went out and won the PGA the week before and didn't even make the cut this week. By the way, I thought it was kind of weird that Phil went 2 over on the last 3 holes to miss the cut by 1. Not sure if he was ready to go home or what that was, but it's kind of, to me, the field was very strong. You had Poulter and Sergio and Rose and all these pretty decent names up there in the hunt, and it really just ended up being a 2-way showdown, if you will, and very impressive to see Kokrak get it done. So we'll see where this goes for him. I thought it was also interesting. He went to Xavier. He's an Ohio guy, and he's not playing next week, which I thought was interesting. So next week we have the Memorial coming up, Jack's tournament, which is always a really fun one. And I just thought it was interesting that he wasn't in the field. So,
hey, how about Sergio this week? I know he kind of blew up today and shot 76, but he was right up there on the leaderboard. And this is ironically 20 years after his first PGA Tour victory at this place. It was his first of, I believe, 11 PGA Tour victories. But it was nice to see Sergio out there too.
It's a good course for Sergio. He plays well in Texas as a whole, and Colonial is really a good fit for him.
Brad, your pick going into this week was Morikawa or Spieth, or who did you have?
Well, here's the story. You're right. I picked Morikawa and Spieth being neck and neck. So I obviously missed on both, but closer on Jordan. I should have just picked Jordan. Brad, it's hard for me to just go with Jordan competitively. Him with Under Armour, and I've always got to pick somebody that's kind of a rival there. So I picked Morikawa, and he wasn't in the mix. Well, how about my sleeper pick?
Was your sleeper Piercy?
Well, just a sleeper top 10. That didn't work out. Scott Piercy.
Piercy was his sleeper top 10. He got DQ'd.
Don't tell him.
I love
he
sleeper.
Might be looking for me.
I love sleeper top 10s that don't even get to finish.
Yeah.
Well, and another sneaky one this week. So, you talked Morikawa finished 14th. He still played pretty well. And Abe Answer, again, another top 20. Abe is he's a stud. So it's kind of fun. Again, Ian Poulter is on a run right now. He's playing some really good golf. And I think this last week, David just said pencil him in for Spieth every time in Texas. I get it. From a Survivor standpoint, I went with Justin Rose. I hadn't used him yet this year. Felt really good about his chances. I think he finished at about 20th. If he had just gone even par in the last 8 holes, I think he would have finished in 7th place. So, but you gotta play them all. So, that being said, going into next week, the Memorial. So, defending champion at the 2020 Memorial is John Rahm. Second place was Ryan Palmer. Fitzpatrick's up there. Matthew Walsh, Jason Day from right down the road. Tony Finau played well last year. Patrick Reed. Who do you guys have next week for the Memorial? And Spieth took 13th last year, by the way.
Brad, are you ready?
I'll go with Justin Thomas to start breaking back next week.
I like it because he played well today, right? To finish out, I think he finished ended up backdooring a top 20 or maybe 30. but I think he was kind of trending back a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. He's had a couple uncharacteristic weeks for him. So
yeah, he finished 40th this week. Who do you have, Brandy?
Are you ready to not want to do the show with me anymore?
Okay.
Patrick Reed.
Patrick Reed. That's a good pick. He's been playing some really good golf. I kind of like John Rahm, defending champion. I feel like he played pretty well at Kiowa. He's got a week off here. Could be a real good option. So we'll see what happens at the Memorial. But those are our picks that we're locked into. I'm sure I'll change mine 10 more times. And who knows? Maybe Jason Kokrak will decide he wants to play. But it sounded like he was out of the field. But he'll be home in Ohio, I'm assuming. So, and speaking of Jason Kokrak, PXG. So a win for PXG this week. And we want our listeners to know that 10,000 Swings is brought to you by PXG, Parsons Extreme Golf. PXG is an incredible new store in Southdale that you've got to go check out today. Please call the store and make an appointment or swing by today to see their new Gen 4 clubs. They've had so much success with that Southdale store that they're actually opening many new stores all over the country in the next few years. So we thank all of our listeners for supporting the PXG store and everything PXG is doing. Brad, have you swung PXG irons yet?
When they first came out, I got to try quite a few of them, but I haven't tried anything new in quite a while. Probably need to do that.
Have you? So are you still using your old Nike irons?
When they are in use, that's what's in the bag. I probably need a little more length and forgiveness. So there's quite a few things I should try out.
Do you have the slingshots in there?
No, I have blade, so I definitely need some help.
I always have thought of Brad as a butter knife kind of guy. And speaking of butter knives, let's talk a bit about Ben Hogan. So, Ben Hogan and Brad, can you just talk a bit about Ben Hogan and Colonial and Dallas, and just kind of, for our listeners, just kind of talk about, as a full-time resident now for the last 28 years, like, talk a bit about Ben and everything he's done and the connection to Colonial and all that.
Sure. Well, the connection to Colonial is Ben Hogan was a caddy for Marvin Leonard, and Marvin Leonard was a successful business person in the Fort Worth area, and Ben Hogan was his caddy as a young man, and it actually became the guy that helped Mr. Hogan get on tour, and they later became very good friends, and so he was a sponsor and a good friend. Well, Mr. Leonard is the guy that founded Colonial Country Club. So they built that. It was the first, he wanted bent grass greens, and it was the first bent grass greens in Texas. And so that's how Colonial started, with Mr. Leonard, and that was the connection to Mr. Hogan, is through him being a caddy and a sponsor. And then obviously Hogan must have liked the course that Mr. Leonard did, because he won there 5 times. I think he may have only been the only back-to-back champion. And then also Mr. Leonard, later built Shady Oaks as well, or founded Shady Oaks, and Mr. Hogan ended up being a lifelong member there. So they had this connection for a long time, and Marvin Leonard is also a pioneer of in golf here in the Fort Worth area with the 2 courses I mentioned, and again, kind of history of bringing something new to Texas with those greens. So, and then he had Perry Maxwell design the course, and we just watched Southern Hills this week. Perry designed that one, so both of them were featured this week on the telecast. So great venues. So anyway, that's kind of the connection there with Hogan, and obviously played well here. He was from Fort Worth, won 64 times on tour, Hall of Fame career. So, Fort Worth's proud of that.
Very cool. David, as a teacher for a living, can you talk a bit about Hogan and your connection to Hogan and everything that he means to you?
So if I have anyone that I'm going to put up on a pedestal, it's Mr. Hogan and the way he taught, the way he conducted himself. One thing I want to kind of reiterate, going back to Sater, what you said about like winning back to back. He won in 1946 to shoot 65 on Sunday to win by one. Defended in 47 and then won back to back again in 52 and 53, and that was after 1948 he won 10 times. I mean, this guy's career was amazing, but one thing I don't know everybody knows this. In 1949, he was driving back from Phoenix, where he lost to who was it? Jimmy Demerit, who's also a fellow Texan. I believe he's from Houston. And it was just him and his wife in the car, and they collided head to head with a Greyhound bus. It was foggy, it was icy, and when he couldn't swerve out of the way fast enough, he threw himself over his wife, preventing her from going through the windshield. And the steering wheel that then he threw himself away from dove, like it went through the driver's side seat. So think of that for a second. If he doesn't dive out of the way, that thing is through his body. So his wife had some minor injuries. Mr. Hogan had a broken left ankle, contusions to his left leg, broken collarbone, cracked rib, double fracture to his pelvis, head abrasion, and internal injuries. Think of that for a second, and now what he just did after that accident. It's pretty incredible, and we don't need to dive into this now, but Brad, we've talked before, and you know what I've said about Tiger coming back from his injuries. There's some comparisons here, and I know Golf Digest did an article a while back on it. But man, what he did after that, I mean, all odds were against him. He was not supposed to live through that. He was not supposed to walk again. And I know that the similar talks are going on with Tiger. But when it comes to Hogan, like I still love his old school descriptions of the way the body is supposed to work throughout the golf swing. And where we've kind of got lost, in my opinion, in golf instruction is it gets too caught up on swing plane. And Hogan got kind of into, okay, here's how the body works. Here's how this moves. Here's how this moves. And here's the effect that has on the rest of the golf swing. And that's kind of been my premise for the basis of how I teach. And I understand that everybody's golf swing is different, but I do think there is a basis to where you need to start. And when you can get your body moving correctly, it's fantastic. In fact, in my office, I still have the photos of him at Marion hanging on my wall and right in front of me of that swing sequence. I mean, they're classic photos. I always love referencing this story when it comes to Hogan, and I'm not going to get the verbiage exact, but someone came to him for a golf lesson to work on his putting, and he brought them to the driving range to hit some iron shots. He's like, "Hey, wait, I wanted to work on my putting." He says, well, Mr. Hogan says, "Well, you're not hitting it close enough to the hole for this to be a putting problem." Like, your proximity from the hole is your issue with your putting. So, I mean, this man has brought so much to the game of golf, and when it comes to modern and historic teaching, that he's a pretty special person in my personality and heart.
Yeah, for sure. And just, all the stuff that you spoke of. I mean, think about, his teachings, his swing is still a model for many that teach the game today and are around the game today. That's pretty impressive because, teaching, has evolved, and there's so many more elements of teaching and instruction today, and yet that is a lasting legacy of what he built, for himself and on the golf course. It's impressive.
My only wish is I wish there was better camera footage of him, because a lot of the camera footage that we get has a lot of camera shake. And if you draw the lines correctly, you'll see the camera moving 6-7 inches each direction throughout his swing. And I think Ledbetter even wrote a book about how he reverse pivot. Well, he didn't reverse pivot. He used footage of his swing where the camera moved 7 inches. Yeah.
I wish that'd be nice if there was a way to, get all of that footage today and have the angles and the lines the way you wanted it. I mean, gosh,
right.
It would be incredible.
No, that's really good stuff. And I would love to break that down even more, but we are starting to get a little bit short on time, and I have to get some PGA Championship conversation in. So before we get to the PGA Championship, might be a good time for our listeners to crack a beer. If you're looking for a beer to crack, Corona Premier is a sponsor of 10,000 Swings, and Corona Premier is the new 90-calorie 2.6 carb beer from Corona. So if you like Corona and you want something even a little bit lighter, Corona Premier, go try one out today. It's delicious, it's light, it's refreshing. Great golf course beer. You don't have to worry about getting a little too heavy. It's just very nice, and probably will help you maybe make a couple good swings on the back nine and finish out a good round. So Corona Premier, go try it out today. So guys, on last week, the 18th hole, we never got to talk about it, but what was happening with Brooks and Phil on the 18th hole is something I don't know that I've ever seen. A couple of years ago, Tiger had a similar, I guess you'd call it, situation at the Tour Championship, but not really, because I feel like the security was more in control of what was happening. Brooks and Phil couldn't get to the 18th green. I mean, you saw guys like literally grabbing Phil as he was trying to get to the green, and then Brooks just like disappeared. And Brooks came out afterwards, actually later that night, and said that his knee got dinged up a few times, and he's already had multiple knee issues. What did you guys think of that scenario on hole 18 at Kiawah last week? Because I thought that was I've never seen anything like it.
So here's my first thought on this. You want to see the difference between Phil and Tiger? And Tiger, when he won the Tour Championship, who was controlling that crowd? It was all the sheriff's department. It was all police officers. Phil at Kiawah, not that there wasn't a police presence, but it was volunteers. Huge difference between who's controlling those two crowds. So you want to look at the Tiger effect on the golf world, and there you have it. It's Tiger versus Phil, two of obviously the most popular golfers of our most recent generation, and one gets all sheriffs and one gets half volunteers. But that was pretty impressive. That was, boy, COVID went away pretty quickly on the 18th hole at that event.
For sure. Brad, what did you think?
That's a really good call out by David. I hadn't even thought about it, but it clearly was more out of control at Kiawah. I mean, both of them, both Phil and Brooks, both kind of had comments of concern after the round. So it was a concern, and you may have seen it. Seth Waugh from the PGA, apologized and said, "Hey, more could have been done, and will be next time." So clearly, there was a little bit more concern on this one too than what we remember about Tiger at Tour Championship.
I think at a certain point, it just didn't seem like there was a way to control it. Like it was, no matter what you were going to do at that point, what else could you have done? You already have your people, your volunteers, your security out there that you have, and they could have tried to call in more, but you couldn't even find Brooks Koepka. And Brooks is not a small guy. And poor Ricky Elliott trying to get through there with a staff bag. Like that was, like I said, it's incredible. And as much as I fear for the safety of the athletes, it is cool to see that side of golf, that people can get that excited about Phil Mickelson winning a tournament. That was pretty special, especially with limited fans. And we're still in the middle of a pandemic, depending on who you talk to. Like, it was interesting that people were wanting to get that much on top of each other. So we'll see if there's if there's a flood of COVID cases in South Carolina soon. But that was I've never seen anything like that. Was, like I said, it was so much different than the Tiger one a couple of years ago, where Tiger felt it was very under control still. So I thought it was interesting.
I have seen something similar, Brad, and I don't remember if you were there or not, but it was 2019, and the Gophers upset Penn State, and 50,000 people rushed the field. And I'm sorry, those volunteers had no chance.
That was probably the biggest Minnesota Gopher football win, Brad, in, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years?
Oh my! We upset not Penn State. We upset Penn State a long time ago when they were ranked number 1 in Happy Valley, and we also beat Ohio State once when they were highly ranked, but at home. Yeah, that's probably the biggest victory we've ever seen.
that was something, and I was there with a whole bunch of friends and customers, and we were just kind of basically got pushed to the ground by some of my friends. You know, I was grabbing Jeff Munich. He was in my arms because the other guys were crushing us, and it was an unbelievable experience. And we just sat in the stands. We did not rush the field. We just sat in the stands and just watched everyone take over. It was pretty cool. So,
dude, my 10-year-old Aiden was halfway down onto the field, I think, before the game was even over. He just left. And I'm like, where are you going? I'm like, Dad, I got to go. I got to go find my son. But I kind of had flashbacks to that because this is golf's version of rushing the field. And I get it's a completely different thing. Like, football players are obviously padded. It's a little more scary, but it's kind of cool at the same time.
So speaking of people rushing about golf, last Monday night, I believe, a video came out on social media with Brooks being interviewed. I believe it was Saturday after the round, maybe Friday or Saturday after the round, and Bryson walked by in the background, and you could hear his metal spikes from about a half a mile away. And I could attest, I actually heard those same spikes last week. Like they're still, you hear them pretty good. It's metal. It's totally different. And so there's a video that surfaced with Brooks really rolling his eyes, and then basically he stops the conversation with the reporter and says, I can't do it. He dropped some not so great language in there as well, and just said, I can't do it with this guy. And all of a sudden this whole beef with Bryson and Brooks is reignited. They've had multiple, Brooks has been pretty outspoken about how he feels about Bryson's time, the amount of time he spends over shots, all those different things. But now it kind of all got, basically he got a little bit of oil and gas put on the fire this week, and this thing went viral. There was over 9 million views of the video in less than 18 hours, I believe. And then I don't know if it was the tour or someone actually pulled the video down. So the question is like, was this somehow from the PIP? Were they trying to get some? Were they both trying to get some PIP points, or is this just real? And I think it's just real. I think Brooks just doesn't care for the way Bryson does things. And then there was some Twitter exchanges from these two. There was a guy that this week on Twitter actually made up a video to the Backstreet Boys' "I Want It That Way" of Brooks singing a song about Bryson. It was, to me, this is so good for golf. All these little feuds, all these little beefs. Brad, what do you think? I thought it was hilarious.
I think it's hilarious, but I agree with you. I don't think they're trying to create content. I think there's at least something there from Brooks. So it's interesting. It could be interesting if they maybe they can get in the hunt at the U.S. Open next month. Could be fun.
Well, based upon the PGA Tour handing out $40 million for those doing good for the game of golf, especially on social media, I don't think these guys care too much about what they're doing.
Right.
I don't know, it was entertaining. And also to wrap up from the PGA, Eric Van Rooyen, friend of the show, we talked about last week. He did send an apology letter out for his behavior on 17, and I'll tell you what, I feel so bad for that guy because he got a lot of negative attention, and essentially what happened was that he just hit a boiling point. We've all been there. He had the lead in the first round. He's in a decent spot in the second round. All of a sudden, multiple bad bounces, and he just lost his cool. But I thought it was a classy move. He sent out an apology. We're all human beings. So that was kind of the wrap-up that I had from the PGA. And a couple local things I wanted to share before we wrap up here. A good friend of our show, Jeff Kaiser from the University of Minnesota, who's been on before. His brother, Brian Kaiser, recently, he's a section pro in the Connecticut, Massachusetts area. And he just won the Connecticut PGA Championship for the second year in a row. And last year, he should have gotten an exemption to the Travelers, but the tour decided to cut back some of those exemptions because of COVID restrictions. So he doesn't get in last year, which had to be frustrating. He goes back out this year and wins it again. So now he gets to play in the Travelers Championship on tour at the end of June. And Jeff, our good friend of the show, will be on the bag more than likely as caddy. So pretty cool stuff there. Those section championships, as you guys know, are so hard to win. And there's always a lot of guys duking it out. And plus, Brian is a head professional and he owns his own shop. So he had to spend a couple days away from being in the shop and all of those things, young kid at home, all that, and to go out and win back to back, especially after winning last year and not getting to play. So it'd be a fun story to follow at the Travelers in a few weeks. We always, on our show, we like those types of fun little, inside nuggets. And then also locally, Chuck Kliklatsky, who we've had on the show before, was the director of golf at Craigens for over 20 years, is leaving, actually left Craigens this week to go start a new course in Brainerd called the Gravel Pit. So the Gravel Pit's a new 13-hole course, short par threes, basically wedge and putter, maybe a little bit longer in some, for vacation people that are in the Brainerd area that want to just go play golf, but they don't want to spend 5-6 hours doing it. So it's kind of been modeled after Sand Valley over in Wisconsin. They have the sandbox there. And so this is kind of their version of that. So that should be cool that Chuck is leaving to go over there. And then on the flip side, Craigens is actually making some huge changes. They're renovating all of their current holes with Tom Lehman right now. And then they're adding a new 18-hole course. So potential that they might get some, maybe a Mackenzie or a Corn Ferry Tour event in the future here. There's some potential there. So pretty cool that all that's going on in Craigens, and awesome to see Tom Lehman continue to do a lot for Minnesota golf. So Brandon, have you ever heard any other courses opening in Minnesota? Because these are the first ones I've kind of heard of in quite a while, right?
I haven't, and to be honest, I didn't even know about the Gravel Pit. So that's a pretty cool idea. And to be completely honest, I do vacation up in northern Minnesota quite often, as my parents have a lake place up there. I will be all over that. 13 holes. If I can go play 13 holes of golf in a few hours and not spend half my day playing golf and then get on the boat, that's right up my alley.
That's what I think for a lot of people, and people that go fishing and stuff too. Think about how many people are in that area fishing at 7, 8 a.m. and then they want to go play, for a couple hours. So it's kind of a cool concept. I love that courses are trying to do unique, different things to get people involved. I can't believe the number of people that have started playing golf in the last couple of years here that started at Topgolf. They got introduced to the game by Topgolf. I know so many people were afraid that Topgolf was going to destroy the business. I think it's really helping. I think it's a cool way to bring the entertainment light side. And then if you have some success with it, maybe you go to the course, as a graduate program. Brad, do you have a Topgolf in Dallas? I know there's one in Austin, right?
Well, there's 4 of them here. So yeah, there's quite a few. And I agree with you. I think it's been good for golf.
No, that's awesome. What have you guys had any new courses popping up in Texas yet, or is it still
the big one? So PGA Frisco will be open. Let's see, summer of 22. So 2 18-hole courses, $500 million project, and they're playing the 23 senior PGA there, 27 PGA, and there'll be numerous LPGA, PGA Tour champions, and maybe ultimately the Ryder Cup there. So that place is being built right now and not too far away.
Oh, that is awesome. I knew it was happening at some point, but I didn't realize it was coming this soon. So that's great to hear.
Because that's the new home of the PGA of America, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And when are they done in Florida?
Well, I think there'll be a transition. Like I said, I know the course opens in summer of 22. I'm not sure the exact date of when the offices are going to open here, but there'll be a transition. But I do know that's the date on the course. Omni's got a big resort there. There's a 127,000 square foot conference center, so they'll be operational. With the transition, they're going to need more people than just those that are coming from Florida too. It's going to be a big operation.
Oh, that's great. That's it should be fun to see how that all goes. Brad, one thing that David and I started doing on this show when we came back on the air this year is we've tried to talk a little bit every week about a local business or two that we've supported. It's just really important to us to try to help anyone local that we can, and we know that if we don't do that, we will lose those places. So I wanted to kind of go around the horn here, and I'll start off by sharing a local place I supported this week. So the Minnesota State Fair is considered to be the second best state fair in the country, obviously behind Texas, because that's just how everything works. But in 2020, we weren't able to have a state fair. So very sad here. And they came out like a month ago and said, hey, we're going to do a state fair Memorial Weekend kickoff. So normally our state fair is Labor Day weekend, but they did like a reverse, at the beginning of the summer. And they sold 10,000 tickets a day. So we signed up online and we got 6 or 5 of the 10,000 tickets for our family, for my wife, myself, and my parents, and our little guys too. And we go to this thing. We signed up for Thursday. So the weather's been, 65 to 80 every day. Perfect. On Thursday, it just happened to be 45 with a 20-mile-an-hour wind and rain. And I will tell you, after 3 hours of being at the state fair, our little guy still said, I want to go back to the state fair. He just kept saying it over and over again. And this is a state fair that only had about 15 food booths open. Probably 4 bands were there. And none of the animals or, any of the normal things you'd have. So it was probably like 10% of a normal state fair. And they sold out the 10,000 tickets every day in a couple of minutes. And so we got to support Pronto Pups, which is actually a friend of mine, Greg Carnes, owns it. It's a different type of corn dog, different type of batter on a corn dog. Mousetrap cheese curds, which were kind of a play on Mousetrap. Fantastic. And then the biggest hit, as always, is the Sweet Martha's cookies. They sell them in these big pails. You get 4 dozen cookies for $17, and I'm guessing they've got $2 into them, and it's the best moneymaker of all time. So it was really fun to help, support all those local businesses. And some of the lines were like an hour just to get a corn dog. And so there's a lot of pent-up demand for people to get back to normal and get out there, and it was pretty cool. How about you, Brandy? Anyone you supported locally this week?
Do you have any idea how happy I am that my internet went out last week and CenturyLink came out on Thursday, so I got to stay home all day and not be out in that weather? That was miserable. Yeah, we did support someone locally this week. And Brad, I think you've been there well. It's a very, very fun family-owned business, Cullen's Ice Cream, right up the road here on Douglas/Zane. Fantastic. The family works the company, and we love taking the kids there after baseball games. As baseball games are right down the road at Northwoods, and they've been here for a couple of years now, I think. And when it's nice out, I mean, there's 25 bikes outside. They block off parking spots. It's a busy place, and it's fantastic. And they will go out of their way. They're kind of like an old school ice cream soda shop. So you can get the old school bottles of pop, and it's just really cool. The old school candy, the pop, it's awesome. I love these traditional type ice cream stores. It's nothing against Dairy Queen. Kids love Blizzards as well, but like this is just, it's different. And so Collins is our business of the week that we've supported.
I always love that you look across the street from the ice cream, candy, and bottle shop, and it's Accord Orthodontist across the street.
Right.
Because you know every dentist or orthodontist just gets the shakes when they look at those places, or they're thinking, hey, that's money for me. I don't know. It's just, Brad, this place is so cool. You feel like you're in Sandlot, the movie Sandlot. And you go get a cup of, a scoop of ice cream and some candy or a bottle of soda. It's got a really cool vibe. So that's awesome, Brandy. Good one. How about you, Sater? Any places in the Dallas-Fort Worth area you've been able to support recently?
Yeah. So I don't have any great stories, but I'm gonna give you guys a couple cities here. So Fort Worth this week, I was over there earlier this week and went to a place that I hadn't been to before that's right down the street from Colonial on University Boulevard, right near TCU campus, called Dutch's Hamburgers. And it was great. It was awesome. Nice local store. There's a lot of local eateries there, and I'm sure that they all got frequented this week, which is nice for all those local businesses. I'm going to do another deal, though. You guys are heading to Nashville on some trips in the future. I was over there a couple weeks ago. And went to several that are fantastic there in East Nashville. So went to a place called the Pharmacy Beer Garden. Great hamburgers, lots of great beer. Another place right across the street called Moss Tacos. Awesome. And then 5 Points Pizza, which is only a couple miles from there, and great pizza. So I've given you guys 3 great places when you get to Nashville to plug in.
I feel like when I go to Nashville, I just spend all my time at Hattie B's. That's my that's my spot. That's a great chicken place.
A good spot.
Yeah, and the nice part about Hattie B's is you can go as hot as you want with the chicken. If you want just a regular tenders, you can go a lot of different directions with it. So
do we really have to wait until you're 40 to do this now? Because now I'm kind of getting hungry and excited.
My 40th birthday party in Nashville has been moved to my 37 and a half birthday party next weekend.
Right.
Let's do it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Brad, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing all of the wonderful intel that you have with Colonial and Ben Hogan and just everything happening in the Dallas market. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We'd love to thank our sponsors, Jarrett Yalen with Northwestern Mutual, PXG, and Corona Premier. You can connect with us, as always, via email at 10kswings@scorenorth.com. Please subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, SKOR North, and give us a 5-star rating. For episode 15 next week, we will have Isabella McCauley and Megan Muniche on for a special Monday night version of our show. Isabella will be fresh off of her first appearance at the U.S. Women's Open. That's right, U.S. Women's Open. She's 17, and she's playing in a U.S. Open. So cool. We're really excited to talk about that next week with her. So thank you, friends, for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Brad Cole.
I'm David Branstad.
Cheers.